Mike will make.
Two. I know that's right. One, two. Is this mic on? Super DJ Sean Rebel Organic Radio. That's how we get it down. How we get it. What? Of course, once again, today's special guest in the house. All Up in Your Business podcast once again. They up in here, y'all. If you're just getting on the feed, it's Mix Station Radio Live. One 855-493-6499. What you say, Big Nick? MIXXStation.com.
Mike will make.
Organic radio show with All Up in Your Business. They got some hot topics to talk about today, y'all. And I'm gonna attempt to get some of y'all's local music on here too, man. Y'all shout me out. If y'all listening right now, make sure y'all shout me out. Let me know what's good. Don't hit me on my phone, though. Hit me on the actual page on FB or Instagram. I wanted them to let me know what's good because my FB is live right now. YouTube is live right now. And all the other social medias. That's how we getting down. All right. All Up in Your Business podcast.
I didn't even have a comeback for that one.
Had to break it down.
Man, it is Super DJ.
Tourette's.
Really?
All right.
So Super DJ, I do got a request that may get us in trouble, but can you play a small bit of a song? Today we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about, sis? Love, communication, and connection. And so we're going to be talking about relationships.
What, you want some Doobie Brothers?
No, actually, come on.
Wait a minute.
Sam and Dave, hold on.
Latte, can you show them your shirt? We want some Meth and Mary, bruh. We want some
all I need?
Yeah, we want some Meth and Mary, man. Come on.
ODB.
Yeah, see if we can start the crowd off with some Meth and Mary before we get into this, because when we talk about love, communication, and connection, remember how this song flowed and how we vibed to this joint back in the day. I don't
care, man. We gonna play it.
There we go.
If we do not own the rights to this song, please let it play.
Talk over song so that way they don't block us.
Hey, bro. He said keep on.
Just keep talking.
So
how y'all doing?
So when I was doing research for this particular subject, it's not that hard to research, but it's also very interesting. And this just falls in line with what All Up in Your Business podcast is about. And since my brother loves Wu-Tang, This was
and latte. That's right.
And everybody in this room, I guess. It was just a great song to go into with. It's one of those songs that when you hear it, especially from our generation, that's what your real love was going to feel like. That was your ride or die song. That was your wedding song. That was your prom song. You know, and there's still so many of us who listen to that song and we all vibe the same way to it. So it's just a great song to be a part of the podcast.
When you grow up and you come from where we come from, like when you come up and if you were in a hip hop, it was just that song that's like, yo, that's my shorty. That's not my boo, that's my shorty. Yeah, exactly. And it's like that's who we ride with. And so it don't matter if, you know, you out there doing something legal or illegal. That was just when you heard that when you heard that song, that's what you rolled with, bro. And that's what's up, man. So this was my song. This was the song that I know back in the day. This was definitely me and Trisha's song. And so it's so funny because like when the song come on, if it come on in the commercial, you can be doing whatever you're doing. If that song come on, you stop.
Just stop and rock your head to it.
Shout out to Trish, y'all. Shout out to Trish.
You know, we were having this conversation. We recorded our podcast on Tuesday. And I said, it's just one of those songs like when you hear, like sweet morning.
Oh, yeah.
Dew. You're like, what? And I was like, okay. But I told Light, I was like, I need you to, if you're going to say it, you got to say it like Method Man said it, with a lot of spit in your mouth. Because he had a lot going on. I'm sorry, he had it. He had it going on.
Us down.
But we got it. If you listen to the podcast, you get to hear Light. He said a couple bars for you. Right. He was in it.
Okay.
Then he told me I was doing too much because I was giving him the hands. He was not prepared for all that.
She was waiting.
I'm just saying.
She was
I'm just
rooting
saying.
for the brother.
He don't even know my kind of love. He's still learning it. He was like, why your hands doing that? Then he was trying not to laugh at me. And he also did it with your breath. He was like, you did not.
Ever get it and keep it tight.
All right, and I'm going to walk this podcast. I'm telling you.
With thousands of kids. Word life, you don't need a ring to be my wife. Just be there for me and I'ma make sure we be living in the luxury. I'm realizing that you didn't have to funk with me, but you did. Now I'm going all out, kid, and I got mad love to give you, my nigga.
Oh,
whoa.
That's what
Can
we
you
on.
woo?
They probably said too early for y'all.
It was great. He was not prepared for all these hands that was all up in his. I was giving him my whole life.
New York with it, right? Because you had to at least nod your head to that one.
You know, I was like, you just don't even know.
Them just sitting on the roof and it was cold like it is today.
Yes, it is. How about
like that was love. You know they was really into it.
So, with that said, so that really encompasses what we're trying to talk about today. So 3 questions that we're going to ask today, and we really want people to think about, because I don't think a lot of us even know to ask the questions. Who taught you how to love yourself and others? What are your requirements for love for yourself and others? And who do you feel most where do you feel most vulnerable? Not who. Where do you feel most vulnerable? Within your love and within your life. I think that those 3 questions are something that a lot of us don't ask, but if you ask yourself those questions, and I mean even within not just being married, not with your boo, we talking about with your mom or your dad, your children, you know, your in-laws, different relationships that you have throughout your life, people who you love, and just the requirements that it takes to love you and for you to love them. How do you love? Where does it come from? So we wanted to make sure that we address those things. And I think that when we recorded our podcast on Tuesday, we just had some moments. We had some aha moments and some quiet moments when we really had to think about, you know, who taught us to love, what love looked like to us. It just was a very interesting conversation.
Imitations of lifestyles are what I see.
So she said, go. She was like, all right, take it a baton. Go. Like, go.
Oh. I did.
And we're back.
It off.
She said she's supersonic herself. She said,
And we're back.
I like that.
No, that's what's up.
He was like, what?
No, you good. I'm with you, sis. No, because we started this conversation a couple of weeks ago, the last time we were here at Mix Station. We started, we were talking about the pursuit of perfection, and that veered off into talking about relationships. So as we talked about relationships, the one thing I hope that we gain from the conversation today is one, in doing our research, being in a relationship for 29 years, and then you know, as you talk about kids and family and everybody else, because being relational is not just between, you know, you and your significant other. It's so many different phases to what love looks like. As we go through, as we approach this, one of the things I realized was everybody has an opinion. And not only does everybody have opinion, there's truth, and you could pull truth from different individuals. I'm hoping that what we walk away today with is ideas on how to effectively communicate, learning some stuff about ourselves, owning those things that we realize that are part of who we are, and then from owning those, having a good conversation with the person that you're in a relationship with, from your significant other to your family to your children, if possible, those within your work world that you may feel like the need to have a conversation with. I just think when you're doing relationships and you're talking about relationship principles, there's so much knowledge and information out there. You have to find what works for you. Just like exercise, everyone is not one size fits all. So when it comes to love, even though love is something that I consider universal, the application of love is not one size fits all. So you got to find what works for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, bro. So.
Okay.
He said, okay. So let's go with this first question. Latte. Who taught you how to love?
See, I had answers for all the other questions, but not that one. But I'm gonna say is I guess I learned as I went along. I winged it because I can't say somebody taught me how to love. I'm still learning me, what I like. Because you know, when we're younger, is one thing. When you get older, I'm a whole different person. Except that I want, you know, it to be genuine. Whatever your idea of love is, let it be genuine. Let it not be selfish. I should be writing these things down. Shouldn't I?
You can go back.
It's recorded. It's recorded. You're recording right now.
That's the great thing.
No, I just want you to be genuine, and I'm just simple. Like, I like the little things. I don't want you to try to do what you think somebody else did, or like thinking you spend all this money. Like, nah, I just want you to just know me, and to know me is to just love me.
But you see what she said, but see,
that's your requirement.
And see, that's the thing. I was gonna say that's a requirement. No, because when I was ready to pull it back, because I think it's important for all of us. Like when we talk about who taught you love, and this is why when we're talking to those who are listening live, or those who will be listening later, the importance of the question is when Lovely and I were talking about this the other day, when she asked like, who taught you how to love? I had to pause on that. See, because you typically coming up, that's not like something that I thought about when I was growing up. It's not something like I saw. I was raised by a hardworking mother and a hardworking grandmother. So I just saw work, and because I saw work, I knew both of them loved me. But there was the requirement of being the strong woman or women that I saw. So it wasn't like we walked around talking about, oh baby, I love you and all that. You know, I was
raised on survival.
Exactly. I talked to my grandmother. Yeah, I talked to her Friday, and when I talked to my grandmother, who just turned 93, she turned 93 on Friday. Shout out to Margaret Gilmer.
Shout out.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
But you know, and her turning 93, as we were talking on the phone, you know, when we were wrapping up the conversation, I just thanked her for not only showing me respect, showing me how to be not just disciplined, but basically how to be a respectful young man. And in being a respectful young man, she gave me so many principles on what education looked like, what speaking the right way looked like, what, you know, living in this world looked like. And when she did all of those things, as we wrapped up the conversation, what I said to her is, I said, you know, love you, Grandma. And she said, she didn't say I love you back, not because she can't, but I just realized that when we wrapped up the conversation, by her not saying that, my thought was, when you're a matriarch at that level, and when you've done all the things you do, she loves her family, and the love from that generation was more shown than often said. I think we're more expressive about how we communicate love, because it was about taking care of business. And when you have, as she did, 9 children, and in having 9 children, you know, once her and my grandfather separated, or once she left my grandfather, when she left him, she was working, and she worked 38 years in the school system. And so as she worked all of those years and raising her kids and, you know, watching her grandkids come up, it wasn't always talking about, hey, I love you. Hey, you know, it was more shown. And in showing me that question of who taught you how to love, you sat around and you watched. I personally didn't have those types of communications. And because I didn't, like you, Latte, I had to learn it as I was coming up. No one said it to me. I had to learn love coming up.
See, and I was different. My mom raised my brother and I, and we got the I love you. You know, my mother was really big on acknowledging when we did good and bad. So we kind of had that. And like I said, I had my mom in my life on like an exclusive basis, the way I liked it, probably until I was like in the 2nd or 3rd grade. And then she started working full time. And that was a different kind of love. But my mom was always the one to make sure that she told us that, you know, we were the kind, smart, you're beautiful, but these are the things that you're going to need to do. So a lot of her love had to do with survival, but she didn't want anybody else on the outside to say, I love you.
Right.
And you take their love over her love, or the kind of love that she wanted us to know. And that was the word. You know, it's like, I know that for me, I had my grandmother and I had my uncle, and they were so strong in our lives, but like my uncle was very affectionate. My grandmother, again, 8 kids she raised, and the I loved you came in the form of, I cooked with her all the time. So I learned how to cook from her. I learned how to love from her. But when we were talking about at the podcast the other day, and Light was saying that his grandmother was strong, in my head, all I could picture was the time when my grandmother took a cast iron frying pan and hit one of my aunt's husbands in the head because he was abusing her. Wow. And my grandmother was like, this is what love looked like. Bam! And in my head, I was like, I don't think that's the way it's supposed to look.
I don't see how my bank account is set up. I don't.
You know, so, but I know that for me, love always came in the package of family, whatever family you had. It didn't have to be the mom, the dad, the son, and the daughter. It came in whatever way it did. So, DJ, same
Sean
question.
Rebel.
Same
What
question.
I'm gonna drop down 5 more octaves. What up?
Who taught you how to love?
I'm gonna say, rotation-wise, my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather, both on my mother's side, they showed me how to love. They stayed together no matter what, thick and thin, between 13 and 19 kids, moved all over the world, and everybody came back to them. And when they were gone off the earth, nobody knew how to do things after that. So I know they personified the love for the family unit, and that's what I have in me. I always wanted to have a big family, got that, and the love was there, you know, to honor my women and aunts, uncles, nieces, cousins, and the whole nine. And as far as my heart, that would have to be my mom. My mom loves hard and plays hard. She was a businesswoman. She still is, but she retired. And she's was the first person that I've seen as far as showing how to love someone, as far as showing my father dedication, submission, as well as through thick and thin, you know, until she had enough, and then they split, you know. And it's another topic though when the spouse has enough.
When the vow breaks.
I was gonna say, because we're gonna actually go down that route, because some of the things that, as we were preparing for this podcast, we talked when we were talking relationship, we were talking about how we can like delve into like the deeper parts of it. And I know Latte got excited a couple of weeks ago, like we're gonna get into the real shit. Like, she was all
she was about to take it out. She was like, Lee, I got things I want to talk about.
She was
She went ultra supersonic.
She was a little excited, but you know, when we talk about, you know, like relationships and things of that nature, sis, before we get to the next question, there were some things that one of the things I studied was talking about 6 things every black couple should think about. Oh, I jumped down? Okay, my bad.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah. About 6 things every black couple should think about before getting into a relationship. And so now that we were talking about love, because one of the things that we learned and what I thought was interesting, we interviewed Tracy Pinnock a few weeks ago on our podcast. And when we talked to Tracy, she was talking about couples having what they call like, I asked her, do women or do people in general, it's not just women, sometimes create lists that eliminate the possibility of them finding the love that they're looking for, because they have all of these things that they want people to do. And so I know that kind of segues into the question, like what were our requirements, or what were the requirements that we had. So before I get to our requirements, on this list it talked about having compatibility. When you're talking about entering into a relationship with someone, compatibility, and I'm not going to just flow through all 6, I want us to discuss them.
But it was the 6 things that are more important than looks in relationships.
That's not what it say right there.
Well, that's what I had.
That's what you wrote. That's what you wanted to see. Ain't nothing wrong with looks. I'm going to say it again. I ain't got no problem with looks. Anything. 6 things every black couple should think about before getting
in a relationship.
There you go.
Okay.
But you can say the looks in there because I think as you get older, everything is not on it. So I'm not going to say that. So I understand the look part, but
compatibility.
Compatibility. The one thing that it said was they say the opposites attract, but you can't connect or exist in the same place if you're not compatible. Your mate should get you. And one of the things that I was going to say, and I wanted to talk about when I'm doing this podcast, I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at some of these things because as I was talking to my wife, I said, some of this stuff I agree with, some of it I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to compatibility, this is my perspective on compatibility. And checklist and all of those different things. When I was young, getting into a relationship, I wasn't thinking about a checklist. Now, when I said that, my boy T.O. said, he said, you didn't have any requirements? And I was like, I wanted the person to accept me for who I was. And I said, but I didn't. I said, even though I was kind of coming up a certain way, I said, I didn't want the LL Cool J girl. I didn't want an around the way girl. And when I said that, I didn't say it in I ain't want a girl because where I was growing up is who I was going to meet. Right. When I say I didn't want that, was like I didn't want, and I was definitely not an extension in your hair guy when I was younger. That's changed. I was definitely the things that I would say I did not want as far as my requirements were this. I did not like selfishness when I was young, and I did not like stupidity. Mm-hmm. And so when I said I didn't want, oftentimes the around the way girl was portrayed as the ignorant person. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like about what I see in black professional women today, or some black professional women, or black women in general, is they've learned how to be professional without losing the essence of who they are. Mm. I was listening to a podcast with Jamel Hill and her fiance, and I like the fact that her husband now, exactly. But I like the fact that she's true to where she's from in Detroit. She's true to the environment in which she was raised, and even though she's on a big platform, she doesn't feel the need to lose her identity. And so I think one of my requirements as far as compatibility with me, when I met Trisha, I wanted someone that I could connect with that was real and true, but she was smart. She wasn't somebody who was ignorant, which I was cool. When I met her, she was graduating as a senior on her way to Towson at the time. And when she had those things going on for her, those were things that were ideal for me. Even at that young age, I never wanted someone who I felt like wasn't going to be doing something with their life, because that's not what I wanted. I always wanted something for my life. And at the young age of 17, I realized, I could run around and hop around from chick to chick. But the difference is if I wanted something more substantive for me at that young age, which is crazy, but I was thinking this way, I wanted a person who actually wanted something in life. I wanted somebody to be thinking beyond what we're going, where we're going to be hanging out, what sub we're going to be getting next week and things of that nature. And I wanted to know that you had a future. And at that time, she was thinking big picture. She worked, like I say, on her way to college. She had a vision, and when she had that vision fit what I was looking for. So compatibility, I think, is crucial when you're trying to enter into a relationship. So, ladies?
Well, I think it depends on where you are in your life. So my husband and I started dating when we were 13 and 14. You don't talk about compatibility at 13 and 14.
Right.
It depends on where you are, in your life at the time. So really, my thing was, he looked good. He seemed nice. I already knew him. He was a friend. That was my compatibility. I didn't even have requirements at the time, except for, we were talking, my requirements as far as compatibility were, you couldn't be abusive. Right. I knew that at that age. Mm-hmm. No drugs, no drug dealing. Right. I was like, I wasn't willing to die for you, and I didn't want to be with somebody who put me in that situation.
Absolutely.
And you had to be kind, and I wanted you to be funny. Wanted you to bring some joy to my life, because at that time, that 14 to 17-year-old range was really volatile. The family was changing, the area was changing, and I knew that I wanted to have somebody who was with me, who brought me joy, and who I could bring joy at the time. And when you're 14, you're like Twitter paid. You just are like, he smiles at me, I'm good for the day.
But sis, would you say that's? But see, so name the things that you just said. You said you wanted someone who was nice, someone who wasn't abusive, right? Someone who looked good, someone who made you laugh or brought you joy. Those aren't things that's exclusive to a 14-year-old. To me, that's foresight, to be able to see those things.
Yeah, but my thing was, I will tell you that with the friends that I had, not everybody thought like that.
Right.
I've seen girlfriends who were the same age as me get their ass whipped across the street from a guy that they wanted to love them.
Not knocking it, but what I'm saying is, when we're talking about the greater point of being compatible, and we're talking to a much older audience that right now, and when we're talking to that much older audience, the encouragement, because to me, when we talk about certain principles, what we're trying to share is because even though we have our history, you're right, will be so much different than other people's history. And Latte, you're not going to get away from the compatibility thing. We're going to bring you in as well. And just to hear your thoughts. But what I would say is this. When someone is out there looking to enter into a relationship, you want to find somebody that you're compatible with. And that compatibility may not be a financial compatibility, may not be a professional compatibility,
right.
but you have to find those areas in your life that you say, these are vital to bring me joy. These are vital to make me feel safe and secure because I won't feel like I'm going to be abused or taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And someone that if they're appealing to you, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
No, that's a great thing because I have a preference.
It's exactly. So
hey, Shy Brown.
Listen.
Hi.
So as we're talking about those things, and the
I
audience
love his responses,
and the audience is listening. You know, if you're male or female, like you have to look for individuals that are, like I say, bring you that joy. You have shared interests. There are things that you like, that they like, and then there'll also be times where there are things that you want to do that person may not want to do, but they encourage you to do the things that you're into.
But I also said, like when we were talking, I said, but if I would have met my now husband at 21 or 31, my requirements were so very different, and depending on the situations that I had gone through in life. And I'm just saying, you know, for me, those were my things. Not that somebody else wouldn't find the same requirements. It's just one of those things. I think when you're a young lady, and I was way too young. We always talk about how we were way too young to have been in a relationship, and that somebody should have snatched our asses up and said, hey, these other things are important. But, I mean, God willing, our lives turned out to be really good. But it didn't always have to be that way. I just know that I watch my daughters, I watch their friends and them try to find people that they're compatible with. And we have to have really open dialogue about what your requirements are to have a friendship with someone. Because that's your first stage. Before we even get to love, your requirements. The Light was saying that when he spoke to his wife, then just Trish at the time, she was appealing. He liked what she had to say on the phone. He liked the manners that she had. When he saw her, it was just a light in his eyes that was so beautiful when he talks about that beginning, you know? And I think that even now, a lot of those rules apply. But when you get disheartened or when life gives you bitter pills, you look at the requirements a little bit different. But I was also saying to him, and we both agreed that when you're younger, and I don't mean 14, 15, I mean just in general, you're so very fluid in your love. You learn to adapt to the love. And that's why when people say, well, why would you stay with that person? And it's like, because you kind of you fall into the lull of, oh, we just don't hug and kiss anymore. Or, oh, we don't hold hands. Or, oh, we don't say I love you. Versus if that's something that you really want.
I was holding hands in Philadelphia yesterday, just so y'all know.
Oh, shut. Did you take pictures?
I did take a picture.
I'm going to call Trish and check.
I got them on my phone.
Okay, I'm just asking. She was like, take pictures of this because I don't know if he gonna hold my hand again. I was like, you know that man. That man be staring at Trish like, girl, you the one for me. You is my girl. That's how he look at all the time. But they say it to the side just like, I tap that. So anyway, you know, and I love that because let me just say off the cuff.
Black love, everybody that knows.
This has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. But I just always want to make sure that I let him know how important this is to me, because we were talking and I said to him, I said, this podcast and our conversations allowed me to see men in a different way. Because I think that I made sure that I didn't have a lot of men in my life, so I didn't get caught up in crazy. But I think I needed more men in my life to understand my husband. Because, you know, when you're only learning from women and you only learn how to love from women and you don't learn how to love men, you only learn how to love women, it's a different conversation. It's a different way to look at it. I think that we get so kind of caught up in you should know how to love me for me. But I didn't know how to love him because I didn't know how to love him. I didn't know how to love a male, but I knew how to love females exclusively. You know what I mean?
You always break it down.
So, let's go.
I could definitely relate to everything you just said. Never looked
at
it.
I want you to talk
until
because
you
when
said
you
it.
But you got to
she said it. I never thought about it. Like, I didn't have a bunch of males in my life. I grew up with my brothers, but it was like, you know, we beat each other up all the time, and that was love. You know, I love y'all. It was we beat the crap out of each other on a regular basis, but maybe because we didn't understand each other, but we were tight. But, you know, siblings, that's what we did. I don't remember Probably maybe my grandfather, but he was just like buy us stuff, and he was just always so nice. I pride myself on. I tell people, if you know me, it's to love me because you're gonna get the same latte every time. You know, I'm like, oh, she was different Monday, or what's wrong? You know, something gotta really be wrong because you could read me, but I'm always gonna be that same person. I'm gonna do something make you laugh. We may have that deep conversation, to cry. You know what I'm saying? And then we come back to it. But I'm just always that nurturing. Yeah. So I just want the same thing back. I never knew what I really wanted when I was young. It was, cute. Had to be light skin, light eyes. I wasn't in the Albie Shore type, but you just had to have that. That was my thing, and now I've got older, and it's like, if you ain't Charlie, I'm like, get on my face, No this to y'all. Oh, that was just what it was. Because I didn't want y'all to say shade, because I hear that too. Guys be like, I don't like light skin girl, and I be like, you ain't gotta like me, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's a preference.
But it's a preference.
But
we talked about this on the radio the other day too. So keep talking, sis. You ain't got to defend your choice.
I had to say something because I didn't want to be like, oh,
listen. Even if somebody listens,
he's smiling like,
even if somebody here's the podcast and has their opinion, that's your point of view.
Because people get so you got to.
We all have preferences, and there's nothing wrong with having your preference. Because guess what? If I like butter pecan, I like butter pecan. Don't try to convince me on French vanilla. Don't try to convince me on lemon or
that's
any
right.
That's
right.
Exactly.
My chocolate like the latte.
Oh, she is. That's Raekwon. Oh, that's Raekwon's song. Yeah, Ice Cream Man is coming.
Yeah.
French vanilla, butter, pecan,
look,
chocolate.
Here it comes.
Even caramel sundaes is getting touched.
Scoop ice cream.
Scooped in the ice
cream.
So
what was my question?
That's a different relationship right there. But keep
right.
So no, what we were talking compatibility, but Lovely, and as we always do, Lovely brought up a good point, and as she brought up the point that she was saying, I think that point is real important, especially like because it is.
Yeah, it's just always trying to mess with I got my double scoop of chocolate.
But no, one of the things that I would say, just from a male perspective, when she says she's picking up those points and keys, one of the things that I want to share clearly when we are talking and we're having these conversations, I like being, and you all hear me if somebody asks me how I'm doing, I'm going to say regular.
Right.
And so when I say regular, I had somebody ask me the other day, like, I'm better than regular. I said, are you really? What do you mean you better than regular? You don't even know what regular means to me. And what I tell people is, especially when I'm talking about relationships and things of that nature, I want individuals to understand from a male's perspective, this male's perspective, because I can't speak for Shy, I can't speak for Super DJ over there. But what I can do is say, as a man, the one thing that I do know it's missed, and she just references, is it's not we were raised not to think. We were raised to think provision, not connection. And providing, we were connecting because it's like, I'm doing, so that's good. Now, what that did was, to me, that put us in a deficit. To me, that put men in a deficit because God created us to be relational. He created male and female to be relational. And males and females being relational, when you're looking for relationships, but yet you're making the assumption that women only want to relate, so it's like, I got to do this, and as long as she's happy, we're good because I'm providing. Well, no, bro. At some point in your life, and I'll tell you, in our 29 years, as my sister says, I sit back and I look and have those things. Trisha will tell you, we haven't always had those looks for each other. We haven't always had those times where everything was hunky-dory and everything was going fine. We've had a lot of times in those years where it was discussed, it was disdain, and we were just doing because that's what we were supposed to be doing.
Right.
And it's like, hey, ultimately, what do we want? And we had to have those conversations about what we want so that we can continue to remain in the relationship that we're in. It wasn't like, hey, we just smoothly flowed our way through this whole process. No, I was the guy who would actually express what was going on inside of him, and I felt better when I was communicating and talking. It wasn't, provision is the easy part because it's easy to work a job, easy to pay some bills, easy to do that. But when I know I have a deficit or something is happening inside of me, I need for us to connect. Right. And so that's where compatibility came in, especially within the relationship, because we had to find that sweet spot of, my baby was like, well, I'll just keep doing, let's just keep working, let's keep taking care of the kids. And I'm like, nah, we got to sit down and we got to talk. Yeah. We got some things going on, and the more you don't want to talk, the more you don't hear me, that makes me not get close to that. Right. That pulls me actually in the opposite direction from you. So I think that when it comes
to a lot of folks. But I would say I guess how they call law of attraction, I always love that if I can talk to you. Like I couldn't wait to get a call or a text. I'd be so happy, lit up. Because I know you're talking to somebody, and I'm like, no, but I would be smiling so hard. They like, you must like somebody, and I'm like, no. But I'd be all happy. That would make my whole day. But I just loved talking to him, and that's how I knew. Because I wasn't looking or nothing. It was just like, well, I don't think I'm gonna call now. You know, you young, you be like, I ain't gonna call them. So it was that same like school connection. I was like, why don't I want to talk to him all the time? Because I had plenty of options. We both had options. He's like, your phone going off. I'm like, they be all right, because we were not serious. But I didn't even care about talking to nobody else but him. So that's how I knew. But we don't have the years in y'all head, but we met in school. So it was a liking then, but he was, I'm going to say, immature. Y'all had different ways of trying to see us. He's grown. Shut up. So he used to tease me about my New York accent. So that's how I started. I used to be like, oh, this dude's getting on my nerves. Like, he didn't know that didn't attract me, but the strength and, he sang to me. He still say he don't remember that, but he sang to me, and that, that we were able to just talk. And still now as adults, the music is one major thing that just brought everything full circle. Like, you like that song too? Oh my God, we could just sit for hours on the music alone, whether we talk about skills, DJing, putting a crate together or a CD, and it's just like, oh my goodness, that's just making love on a whole nother level that some people won't get.
Mental.
But
that's that speaks to the compatibility. Just to show you where we are, sister. Turn it over one page.
All over the place.
No, I'm not all over the place.
Me.
I'm trying to. Which page is that, sis?
See?
We good. We're not supersonic, right?
No,
I'm
We're
just
good. No, I want her to know because she's on point. She's right where we are.
Okay,
and I'm
because
missing
I
it.
didn't want you to think
Right.
he's
Oh, right
like,
there,
yeah,
there you
she
go.
ain't
But
answered the question.
But I also want to make sure that we.
This right there.
Yeah,
Compa-
but
you
also
just
in-
talk compatibility right there.
But also in compatibility, we need to be very open to communication.
Right.
I think that when you're in the beginning of and then you get to love, and then love and you're Twitter-pated, and then you're in there all the way. The communication's so very different because when you are at the beginning of that heightened love, you hear each other. You hear each other, but you hear the person who's coming forward for the group. You have the representation of. I'm here to represent myself and the others in my head.
Right.
But you can't tell them that all the other people are in there.
Right.
You just got to bring them
We
forth.
all
They're
agree.
dressed very nice.
Oh,
we
yeah.
agree that you're it. So when we get past that initial love, then what do you hear? Because I think for a lot of us, when we start really going deeper into the communication process of love, the conversational process of love, when life throws you things and you no longer can hear the spouse that you used to understand, or as you grow in different ways, as Light was saying, all of us go through that time in our relationships, no matter how short or long you've been together. You travel on the same roads and you might take a left or right, and you got to come back together because we all grow at different rates, within our relationship, whether it's school or, religious purpose or, your career, things kind of pull you apart. And it's the communication that keeps you guys together, or kids, yes. It's the communication that pulls you back together. Because I know that, like I said before, I couldn't even hear my husband's pain. I couldn't hear his disgust. I couldn't hear his compliments. There were times where I couldn't hear him talking because everything sounded detrimental. It wasn't coming from a soft voice. Or if I said to Light, I said, I remember being in the house when my husband first raised his voice at the kids, and I lost my shit. Because I didn't come from a house where a man had ever raised his voice. It was immediate fear, and then I went straight into lockdown protect mode.
Right.
Meanwhile, I should have been wait until we get into a room together and have this discussion. I didn't do that. I did the complete opposite. I went after him in front of the kids, which then doesn't show togetherness. Right.
It shows an underlying. To me, it shows it's emasculating, and sometimes that's not realized. And so I'm gonna stick to this because we got some good stuff. So I want to do this. So let's get to the 6 because then you touch communication, but then there's some 10 tips. We want to talk 10 tips for men who is dating a strong woman, as both of you are, and then we have some stuff on things that 10 mistakes. Or 10 things that women should, or things that women could say and should say to their men. And I actually want us to make sure we get through all of them because these are good topics. So
okay, so we're going to ask this question and then we're going to go to a break. That way we'll have time to think about it. So trust.
Yep, trust.
You must be able to trust your mate. You will lose your damn mind trying to make sure that fine, good-looking man or woman is not cheating.
And so when it comes to this trust factor, I think that I know, and like I said, I was going to talk about me in this perspective. trust is something that's, to me, in a relationship, that's, when I say earned, it's something that develops throughout the course of it. It's an expectation that everyone enters a relationship on. I think from my perspective, when trust is lost, I think sometimes females don't realize they lose the emotional trust of their significant others when they do things like when you just said you lost it when he had a response. That it is not, because we always think of trust as something being physical. Trust is about trusting someone emotionally, trusting them financially, trusting them spiritually. There's so many different layers to it. And at least for me, when we would have different issues in our relationship, there would be times where I felt like there were times when I couldn't trust my babe because of some of the responses, emotionally, with some of the responses that were given to me. And when I didn't get those right responses, what it would cause me to do was to go into, you got fight, flight, or freeze is what we have. Right. I would fight whenever that would happen, meaning I would, if I didn't get the right emotional response or felt like I could trust her emotionally, I would go into immediate, I'm going to be angry. I'm going to show this emotion that men are allowed to show. And then instead of us being able to communicate and connect properly so that the trust can continue to be elevated, because she responded one way with my trust or what I was trying to entrust her with, I would blow up and then go really strong the opposite. And it's like, you hurt me. And it's so, want to hear funny? This is how passive aggressive men can be when it comes to emotions or when something don't go our way. The other day, I'm sitting in the car with my youngest daughter. And as I'm sitting in the car with her, I pick her up, we driving, I'm taking her to a couple of places. And after a long day of work, and then you're still trying to drive a kid around and you're trying to do this stuff, I'd already told you guys, I was at my low point of, I'm very, very tired right now. So I was already at this tired point. And when my daughter, she wanted me to take her to get something to eat before I dropped off. And I said, I'll take you to get something to eat. So instead of us going to all of these local restaurants, we drive like a half mile, a mile past into more traffic. And I'm sitting up here like, babe, you said it was right there. She's like, no, it wasn't right there. She said, I said it's right up the street. I said, this ain't up the street. That's way up the street.
It's a whole other topic.
Exactly. So when she says, when she does this, I'm going to tell you what my male response was. And my male response was, like, you're not thinking about your dad right now. You're not thinking about all of the driving, all of the back and forth. You're not thinking about all of those things. And when I told you this is not just right up the street, your response, instead of hearing me saying, my bad, I should have told you it was, this, a little bit further. Her response was, well, I said it was up the street. And this is my daughter. She wasn't being smart or rude, but my immediate response was, now you just anger me. So I'm going to say something to hurt you right now. And my response was, see, this is what you don't get about all the money we spent. And I went into immediate, my emotions were not, considered. So I went in immediate at my daughter mode. And so once I go into immediate going to attack my daughter mode, we sit in the car and we quiet. We go through the drive-thru, and after we come out of the drive-thru, we now both have cooled down. And she was like, well, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to, take you out of the way. And I said, baby, I hate when we fuss. And I said, so I apologize to you too, because it wasn't right for me to go down this path. I said, but what I want you to do is I want you to think just beyond yourself, because in thinking beyond yourself, then that at least gives me time to prepare for what it is that you want to do. But if you're just thinking about yourself saying it's right up the street and it's going to take us another good 10, 15 minutes to get up there and then another 10, 15 minutes. And I said, if I've been driving all day, guess what? That bothers me. And the reason I use that as an example is even though we resolved it, what I don't think a lot of women do is when they have a need in that moment, when they make that request of a man, that trust is not just the physical trust. Because and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. For a woman, it's physical trust, and it's trust that you.
It's everything.
I wasn't done. It's physical trust. It's that financial trust that we're going to talk about. I understand it's the whole part of a man, but when you're talking about what a lot of people, if we just say trust right here, I guarantee you if you had people who are online listening, just start checking in, they will go to black men being dogs, not black men being. If you shaking your head, but I would love have your friends call in, because I would love to have that conversation, because that's what people see. And what I'm trying to say from a male perspective, when we think trust too, the emotional abandonment or the emotional selfishness that I believe females show is what causes that gap and separation between men. I'm telling you, that's what I experienced.
But I think you get that both ways as humans, because I think we have times where you may be, and this is a thing, like I work every day, 9 to 5. I'm up, out, I'll drop kids off, I come home, we do the podcast, we do all those different things. And then you get home and somebody wants you to cook, or somebody like haven't eaten, or somebody wants you to wash clothes, or somebody wants you, want to have sex, or somebody wants you to be mom all day, or somebody wants you to do hair. Like those are things that come.
Somebody, it's just you and Shy, so it's not
saying,
somebody. I'm
so like,
He's saying
I'm just letting you know. I'm just saying in general.
Somebody, bro.
I know
I'm
what
just
you
saying.
mean.
You know what I mean?
Y'all
I'm just
willing
saying,
Jada
They
now?
can't stay on topic
I'm
when
like,
you say sex.
look, because they like, no, you don't agree with me. We got to talk about something else. But
No, that's not it
but
at
I'm
all.
just saying. So like, there are times where you are also. It's not just you guys who don't have the emotional trust or that. I'm just saying there are times where I think that anybody in a relationship doesn't take the other person's time and their into consideration, because you may be. You may have been driving all day.
So do you love her just because it's her? How come you don't love what I was saying? Because it's
she agreed with you the whole time.
He was looking the whole time because I was
but
like,
I ain't hear the I love you part. And yeah, I'm trying to say that because...
Oh, Jesus.
No,
you just cut me off, too. You know what? Dear Heavenly Father, we are gathered here today to celebrate
trust
the
you,
same
Mixed
song.
Station
that
loves
sounds
y'all.
like a Prince song. That's not a...
You was on it.
But when I say
Everything
that-
that you said,
but that's
but
why-
that was for your brothers to hype you up. I'm hyping my sister.
But
Can
see,
I
that's-
hype my sister
But no,
real
but see,
quick?
You don't have to yell.
I ain't saying it, and it's not just to cut you off, sis. That's where the disconnect happens. When we're going down this list, and I think in relationships, people see it from their perspectives, and we choose to believe what we want to choose to believe. And you just said one of the things that you grew up with hearing was you heard relational issues, and you heard about relationship stuff from women. You learned relationship things from women, right? Correct? And you said true, and you said fact.
I can relate.
And so what I'm saying is when those things are presented and when men start talking, I think that it's important for us to hear you all so that we can understand love from a woman's perspective. Not the way we intend to give it, but the way that they're looking to receive it. Love languages and all that other good stuff in that book you like. Right?
Yeah.
And that book you like.
Slide it up.
But my point is that when I hear women dap up each other along those lines and stuff like that, it's like
it's like guys don't dap each other up either.
Guys dap each other up for the most ignorant reasons.
Women do too.
Y'all did a celebration because she said the word sex. They be like, Pee Wee Herman.
No, she said sex with someone.
But I'm
so when she
referencing
said
in general.
but
She was
she
generalizing.
we can't. But see, in generalizing, we're not speaking from our perspective because I
But
think
you let me speak, not you speak. That's the difference. Again, I'm like my big thing.
she can do that.
No,
She can do that.
no,
She can do
that's
that.
cool.
what's up.
But my big thing is that the same way I don't direct what comes out your mouth is the same way I try to make sure that when I speak, it's just my thoughts, my opinions.
I do that
vice
too. Because
versa.
I would say, well, who are you talking about?
Well,
and I'm
because
like, I
it
said
could
to
be
say
in
it
general,
so
because my thing is that I think the same way Light always has said that it's not a male or female thing.
Right.
This is a human thing.
Right.
So there's not a particular thing that men do that women don't do. I mean, we can't do some things, but in general,
But you said
we
from
kinda
a
go
woman's
back and forth.
perspective.
But
I said
I'm
the man thing, and then you start coming from a woman's
But
perspective.
my perspective is that we both.
Fellas, y'all hear this?
Look,
Fellas, y'all hear this?
why are we interrupted?
They flipping it.
But why are you rough? But you're like, you
it.
can't even let me speak. You're determined to argue. But my thing is this: you have, but you gotta.
I like what both of y'all said. Just as a female, I
He's
could feel
being
what
the
she was
arse.
saying.
Is what he doing.
I
But you
could
see
feel
his
what she was
face?
saying.
Yes, you see the eyebrow.
Oh my God!
You know,
I know he was going.
But my big
See,
thing
Shy,
is
you got
that
the best position.
we
Right? You just
for real how the way. But my thing is, and I say all the time, we all do things that hurt each other's feelings. We
Right.
all are inconsiderate
Not
at times.
intentional, right.
So it's not just a male type thing or female type thing.
So when
It's
we
in
talk
general.
trust, we're talking about trust all the way around.
Yes.
Across the board. Holla,
I don't
we
know
got
if
it.
I'm a
We
dad
got
because
a caller. How you doing, caller?
Hello, caller. Before I take my brother hair off.
I ain't got no hair. Do you think?
What's up? What's up, family? What's up, family? Hey, calm down.
It's like
No, we
Thanksgiving
finna
without
fight.
the food up
We
in
finna
here.
fight. It's finna be an argument up in here.
But I love this because y'all know it's real.
It's real,
got
and
light
I
out of-
appreciate everything y'all been talking about the first hour. Communication, trust. I mean, that is so big. Being able to trust one another. And the thing about it is, what's interesting is that you have a brother and a sister, and even in their communication, just trusting that, hey, are you listening to what I'm saying? Are you listening to me? You ain't listening to me. You ain't listening to me. So it's like you can see just the elevation in siblings. Imagine what we go through as husbands and wives, or just being in a relationship between the opposite sex. Because why? We all have our own interpretation of what's supposed to be, and how well do we actually communicate what's supposed to be, and how much do we actually take a moment to compromise, to listen to what that person believes what's supposed to be, as well as what I believe should be, and then how do we get to that place of our common ground? So, you know, we don't, because most of us, even just not in the black community, as I've been doing my due diligence and asking other people around that are around me, you know, who did you talk to understand how to communicate, or who did you talk to that broke down what love was about, what marriage and relationships were about? A lot of us never really got that. For me,
Facts.
I'm gonna tell you right now. For me, it was through my music. If you didn't accept my music, you didn't accept me. So I would be broken heart a lot of time, because I was a Nita Baker lover, and you know that was the time everybody loved Whitney more than they loved Nita. And I'm like, yo, if you can't love Anita Baker, you can't love me.
There you go.
And that's
Supersonic.
He meant that.
I feel your love, though. I feel your love, but
I don't know how we got there on the
look, he had to bring it out. He was feeling it in his heart.
Yes, he was.
And he wanted us to
Like,
understand.
give you the best that I got.
But I do understand where you're coming from, and the one thing that I think Light and I can agree on is that we're very open and very real with our commentation, and you know how we present ourselves. Like, we never want you guys to think that we're just living in this agreeable world where we understand each other all the time. And like I said, 95% of the time we wind up at the same road or at the same table with God. You know, but we're still a male and a female. We still have different perspective on things, and we still have our own hang-ups about him, about how females are, vice versa. You're going to have those things, because the whole purpose of our journey was to be able to work through the relationships that we've had in our lives, the deficit that some of those relationships left in our lives, and then to embrace the relationships that made us better people. You know, so I think that, you know, not having the communication of a true male figure who was doing positive things, talking to you about love, those things mean something. Trust. You know, because if you grew up and the men that you knew or the females that you knew were either scammers or schemers, you know, people who were there to, you know, take from you, or people who were detriment to your emotions, your physical, you know, like a lot of us grew up with that. It's not that we didn't have moms who loved us or grandmothers who loved us, because we have that in common. But how many of us can honestly say we had an even amount of love across the board from male and female?
Nobody.
And people could talk to us about finances, trust, communication, to show us what love looked like. And like Light say all the time, to show you what an argument looks like, and what the de-escalation of that conversation looks like, and what being back in love and showing that you can still love each other and disagree looks like. A lot of us didn't have that.
In the honorable words of Keith Sweat, nobody.
You know what? I can't with
He had coffee today.
So it's okay. He can drink. But I think that's the joy about being able to do this podcast. You can agree, you can disagree, you can be in your emotions, but at the end of the day, the love is still there. You know, you just have to, and that's what a lot of the things that my issue is. I'm still learning to communicate and hear a man talk, and not hear the negative connotations over the advice that they're trying to give. You know, and that's new for me. That's like new within the last maybe like 5 years to be able to hear a male say something, and it's not coming from a hurtful place. He's not trying to attack me, you know. And sometimes it's going to still feel that way, because that's just life. But I think that with a lot of this journey, it helps us to stop and hear a little bit more. But it's usually later on, like when this podcast is over.
it's one. T.O.
I'm still sweating on my brow.
T.O. You said some good stuff when you called in, and you talked about how heated it gets between people, just a brother and sister having the conversations. The one thing I'll say is that we often have these conversations. They're just usually off the air. we have times where we're sitting and we're having a lot of these conversations, and that's just like any person, any two or more people who are in a relationship, oftentimes you'll see the good presentations once they get out in the public atmosphere, the public sphere, because that's what we've all learned to do. But the one thing that I know Lovely and I will let everybody know is when we have these conversations, we're looking for that principle to elevate us. And so we're never having difficult conversations with the goal of just disagreeing. We have difficult conversations so that, to do what she just said, so that we can learn. And from that, after we walk away, we think it's causing us to think. So we want anyone who's listening to anyone, on any of our platforms, we want you to hear not only what we're saying, we want you to take away from this. We want it to cause you to think. And once it causes you to think, if you start having these conversations with your significant other, your kids, your different individuals that are in your life, I believe you grow if you start doing that. But if you're not having good conversation come your way, you're not having something to cause you to think, what we tend to do is we start to internalize things, and then we manifest bad habits. We manifest bad relationship practices, and that's always destructive. And our goal is for us to have, in this communication, hear something, think on, meditate on what it is that you're hearing, and then take it and apply it in your life the way that you can, is what we hope that anyone could take away from all of our conversations.
And we'll be back.
Yo, what's up, son? Solomon's ancestor.
Hey, yo. Shout out R.I.P. to my man ODB. New York stand up, Staten Island, Long Island, the whole team, Wu-Tang, Park Hill, Killer Hill.
Yo, what's up, son?
Yo.
Solomon's ancestor.
Yo,
what's up, son?
Mix Station Radio. Become a member, join the site. Station Radio. And that's a wrap with that one. DJ Sean Rebel on the Wheels of Steels on the ones and twos. Shout out to all my people on Facebook land. I appreciate you being out there. You know what I'm talking about. We are going to rock it out and try to keep this thing going. This song right here is by my man, Crooklyn Dodger. It's called The Announcement.
I treat this like Wakanda, like I'm King T'Challa. A ruler like my father was the King T'Chaka. If I think that it's a problem, I'ma spit the chopper. I treat this like Wakanda, like I'm King T'Challa. A ruler like my father was the King T'Chaka. If I think that it's a problem, I'ma spit the chopper. I got all these mumble rhymes scared to spit with Dodger.
I like what you doing, Dodge. Keep it going.
I roll some weird, sell a drama just to get $1. Hit us right up on your bomber, clipper with the llama. Can't be weak for that vagina, bitches set the line up. Amongst some thieves, it ain't no honor. Watch them kids beside you. The brokers ones be trying to shine your flexing with designer. But individuals, it's wise to elevate their mind up. I'm nothing but an ex-cons trying to step my grind up. Immersed about a pool of sharks swimming with piranhas. Now I dabble in this art, speaking truth is honest. So separate me from them liars, I'm a different artist. School of hard knock college, I be spitting knowledge. I'm still one of the hardest, though my lyrics conscious. So don't think I don't got bars just cause this shit melodic. That's why I yell at me, get on this, I leave shit demolished. I perfected my craft and polished, shit is feeling brolic. Steady flowing like a fountain. It's a public service announcement. Tell my hip hoppers keep rocking, mamas keep bouncing. And you oppers can stop the gualas we counting. Run it up. Steady flowing like a fountain. It's a public service announcement. Tell my hip hoppers keep rocking, mamas keep bouncing. And you oppers can stop the gualas we counting. Steady flowing like a fountain. It's a public service announcement. Tell my hip hoppers keep rocking, mamas keep bouncing.
silence over loud niggas. They sneak up on them like a wild nigga. Crowd surfing like a proud nigga. Mic deep in my palms. Voice so anointed like I'm reading from Psalms. Not a soldier at arms, but I can be a storm before calm. This mumble movement got me paranoid. Focus on writing, avoid the unemployed loser. Who sparked the shooter? These clown niggas, not the kids you used to. A simple 16 as sharp as a guillotine that will seduce you. I thought I told you, man, it's bigger than rap. I'm here to elevate you stuck in the trap. This coonery act is fraudulent. I'm calling it an easy out. So let me school you, give you something you can read about. Pack a hyena, circle your campground. Couple hollows will follow, leave you wondering if life's worth the sorrow tomorrow. Moving reckless on the land that's borrowed, a bunch of lost souls. I got a mind of a poet, but yet my heart's cold. It's non-negotiable, I love this shit. Part of my culture, a sacred covenant. Cocky like I discovered it. Hit the lucky lotto, watch me double it. That thuggish shit.
Steady flowing like a fountain. It's a public service announcement. Tell my hip hoppers keep rocking, mamas keep bouncing. And you hoppers can stop the gualas we counting. Steady flowing like a fountain. It's a public service announcement. Tell my hip hoppers keep rocking, mamas keep bouncing. And you hoppers can stop the gualas we counting.
Damn, the dragon has entered. No pageants of splendor, simply savagely ravage your mentor. He had to surrender. What Odysseus remembers from his elaborate adventures. Sacker of tabernacle that burns the average to embers. Coldest classic Decembers to hold this mask and genders. These photographic pretenders soon know the wrath of the emperor. Gather your members and read them the riot act. Any beefing gets fire smacked out your keystone, so quiet that. Soon as my target's acquired, when I attack with a stash of fire inspired by choirs and shots of jack. While liars are halflings from the Shire that fire cats. Child's plays your field of expertise. Out you I expect the least. I was born and bred in a nest of beasts. With an appetite for destruction, don't disrespect the feast. You're exposed and easily breakable like the necks of geese. Scared that grown men might dissect you when you expecting peace. Not a chance in Hades, you crazy as strands of rabies and campers who foolishly play and tamper with Panthers babies. Crazy as taking chances, romancing the manson ladies. I'm chanting with vacant glances so handsome that phantoms rape me. Ain't no escape once these potent anthems emancipate me. So be a man and face me. The announcer.
It's my man Devious. Song called Cocaine Princess. Organic radio show. Mix Station Radio.
Afterwards, go smoke a Dutchess. Get paid and bounce, so them pussies bullets can't touch us. Look, I strike back, even if I'm under attack. You must have thought it was easy. You don't get my life like that. I hold mine like a 6-shot revolver. She fucked up that money. You tie her up somewhere and just starve her. I heard she gave info to the cops before I saw her baby father on the corner drinking with them ballers. Bet what up, shady? But don't look surprised. I should put 2 hot slugs right between your eyes if she fucked up 150,000. Saying don't shoot. I play that big and said, bitch, give me the loot. You owe me. Don't act like you don't know me. 450 G's, she better start to blow me. Said I would get the money, at least that's what she told me. She was on that trash shit, she did her dirt up by her lonely. It's she was the daughter of a Rican, so she still had potential. Come see me every weekend. If it wasn't for this money, then we'd still be speaking. She worked across the street in the school when she was teaching. Seen it in the hallway, bitch acting like she reaching. Seen school security, that's when my 9 got the squeezing. Bullets was hitting kids in the chest for no reason. Some fell screaming, others was left bleeding. Bossy bitch, pull guns with just greeting. Cocaine princess, had your forehead bleeding. She shot first, and that's a good enough reason. Until I get it back, motherfucker, I ain't leaving.
Yeah, that's my man Devious One, song called Cocaine Princess. And you heard it first right here on Organic Radio Show.
And we're back.
And we're back.
There it is. We all out there. All right.
We've calmed down. The sweat is off the brow. Nobody has a Whitney Houston upper lip. We're good.
Oh, goodness.
I don't even know what that is. What's the Whitney Houston upper
Whitney's
lip?
the sweat across the top lip.
Oh my God.
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. She might have been smoking the smoke.
Oh, she was smoking something. We do know that from the Showtime series, right?
Okay. Financially stable was the third on the list.
I'm
getting out.
We were talking 6 things. When you're going into a relationship, we want to always try to share some things that we think are true. And we started off Lovely, and it wasn't on the list, but Lovely talked about communication. We talked about compatibility. You have to have something in you that attracts you. And I'll say this, even when you're talking compatibility, make sure that once you're in the relationship, that thing that attracted you to each other, keep that thing alive. Don't even as you're growing, because I could speak as someone who's grown over the years in a relationship. You want to make sure that, because you're going to evolve in your relationship, who you are in your 20s is not who you're going to be in the 30s and 40s. We've said this before, but what you like and as your like for different things evolve, that person that you're with should either be a cheerleader of or walking right beside you in that process. So compatibility, we talked about trust, and as Lovely said, in all aspects of the word. We're not just talking about the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. Trust is something that is earned through experience. And there are going to be times when a person burns you, and if they burn you, what you have to do is you have to weigh, is this relationship worth it? And if the relationship is worth it, you make the decision to continue to move on. And once you decide to reestablish trust, I will caution anyone for holding something over anyone's head, because once you say forgive may not mean forget, but forgive definitely says we're moving forward. And if you choose to move forward, that trust has to be reestablished so you can continue to build from there.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think a lot of people get stuck in the trust category. When you go through those pivotal moments in your relationship that cause your trust to shift, if you decide to forgive, you really have to work on not bringing up that situation on a constant basis. You have to make sure that if you truly say, I forgive you, or I'm going to be with you, that you mean that wholeheartedly. I think a lot of our relationships may last long, but they are detrimental to our mental, physical, and spiritual health, because we continuously want to make the person pay for hurting us instead of having the courage and not being a coward to walk away and learn to live your life on your own. You can't keep making a person suffer for the things that they've done if they're trying to do better.
If you choose to stay in, and we talked about this on our podcast, Grudges, where we talked about, what I read was failing forgiveness. And there's so many individuals who can speak of forgiveness, but when it comes to actually forgiving and realizing that in order to forgive, to empower, so when you forgive someone, you are actually the person who's empowered, who's empowered to make the relationship work. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to communicate, but if you say I forgive and then continue to bash or hold things over an individual, understand the detriment that it's going to bring.
And that's not forgiveness.
Exactly. And as my sister just said, that's lacking the courage to say, hey, I'm going to move on. This hurt me. If something hurts you deeply and you feel like there's no way to reconcile, it does take courage to move on, but you have to decide to move on instead of saying I forgive, but yet I'm going to continue to throw it in your face.
Because if you have children, or if you have, no matter what you do, if you have other people who look up to you, they will see that, and that will be their response to the word forgiveness. So remember that. So the third thing was financial stability, or working towards it is a must. So she said, now I'm not saying that you have to take care of me, but we have to make sure that we're working towards a financial goal. And I think every dynamic is different. You have the husband who works, or the wife who works, so both people work. I have been blessed to see all different kinds. I've seen the husband work. I've seen a wife be the financial person, and her husband was the one who took care of the kids, and he homeschooled, and he did all those things. But the preparation for your future, to make sure that you both work on your financial language. Because I think that a lot of the times we have this idea that if I make sure that the bills are paid, that's enough.
Right.
And that's not it, because I think we get caught up in the bank account balance I know I'm one of those people sometimes.
I am too.
You know, we get caught up in that bank account balance versus what's healthy for the household in general.
Right.
You know, I like Light's idea. He said something to me when we first kind of started doing this podcast. He was like, look, I make money, she make money, it comes in, she takes care of money. As long as I can do what I want to do, I'm good. I'm on the flip side. I'm like, we spent 52 cents on electricity. Somebody needs to call, and we do the same thing. We go back and forth. And mine is because the financial stability part, that's a fear of mine.
Yeah.
That's a childhood fear of watching my mother struggle, of watching, having times when we had to move because things weren't good, of having to, worrying about the gas and electric bill staying on, worried about the cable bill, worrying about eating ramen for days because that's what was going to be required for that time. So as I grew up, my fear was I don't ever want to wind up back there again. And I wanted to have a partner with me who felt that same way.
Yep. And I actually shared this with my man, and we got to get y'all in on this stuff. So for financial stability, the reason that I feel the way I feel, and I was talking to my man T.O. the other day, and one of the things I said to him was a simple process. When talking about financial stability, the reason I think the way that I think is because my babe works in the bank, and she works in banking, and she's been in it for over 25 years. I said, if you're with someone who's is not good with finances, you shouldn't have them in charge of your finances. Right. I said, I have the trust because she has a mindset, she has a goal. So do I. I have principles. I never want bills to be late. I always want to make sure we're doing exactly what we need to do as far as like paying off our bills, making sure we have 401k, making sure we have savings. I do think that way, but what I also say is this: I'm not a hawk to watch everything because it's never been me. When we were doing Christ Regiment, I was like, everything gotta be free. My team would be like, nah, bro, we gotta charge people for that. We gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this.
Can't make no money without charging.
Exactly. So I know that if you're going to entrust me with it, I'm going to be responsible, but it's not my focal point. So for me, and having somebody in this relationship with me, I need to ensure that I'm building my future with someone, and we've done that. So she focuses wholly on making sure this is paid. What if we did charge this, if we don't pay it off in this time, flipping it to this so that this is a lower interest. She pays attention to all of those things, and she talks to me about it. But it's what she does, and so my perspective is if you're with someone who doesn't have the similar or like mindset to having what financial stability looks for you and your family, you have to think about that if you're entering into a relationship. And if you're in a relationship, it shouldn't be one of those conversations that you're afraid to have, because not having financial goals hurts too many couples, and it hurts too many black couples because we're not thinking about our long term. And I don't plan on kicking off no time soon. I don't plan on her kicking off no time soon. So you have to be thinking about, if you're in your 50s, you're in your 60s, you're going to be a certain age, what do you want your life to look like then? Even if you're grinding right now, what do you want it to look like at a certain point? So you want to make decisions based upon that.
So Rebel, how do you feel about the financial stability? We always ask Miss Latte.
It's very, very important at an early age to try to find out about financial literacy. We were just literally talking about this, last weekend, about training the kids on what to spend, how to spend it, and what it means to them when they're spending their money. And this also revolves around us, because with a big family unit of 10 kids, we have to think about it all the time. If I make this move and I buy this car, how's that going to affect the rest? How's it trickle down to the rest of my team? Well, he needs new shoes. He wears a size 14 and a half. That's not an inexpensive sneaker. She wants to go to ballet. This one wants to do this. This one's working, but it's only part-time. So you're like trying to balance it all out. Right. So we as parents, we do become the bankers, the warden and all of that, but we were just stressing, and I hope that y'all do another show with just talking about financial literacy.
We want to bring some people on,
Definitely. We're definitely doing one? Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely important for the, I'm going to say universally, but for the black community and the black and brown community, we need to have more financial literacy classes and being taught, because a lot of us just go into, like you said, when you go into the relationship, you're not really discussing how much the ring is going to cost. You're just like, I'm going to do my best, work hard.
I'm going to pay this off for the next 10 years. I'm going to get this not married for 10 years.
Right. I'm going to get this $5,000 to $10,000 ring for my fiance so we can get married. But beyond that, how much did the wedding cost? You have to pay for the DJ. Oh, what about the food? Each plate is like a certain thing. All of those things are just to get started. and then you have to breathe afterwards. So you expect. I did. I know. I appreciate everybody that's showing me love. Me and Latte. When you get married, you thinking, hey, somebody gonna give us some cash, somebody gonna send us some cards or whatever. There's gonna be some money on there so we can breathe after we get married, because we done took care of all of this stuff. And then after that, what is it? You know what I'm saying? You have to keep thinking. Just like Lovely said, I was the one that was like 52 cents. Oh man, we could have got that at Wegmans. We should have went ahead to do that. But the number one bargain shopper in this whole building is Latte. She keeps me grounded, because I will be. The car costs $5 extra. She be, let's go over here. We can get it for $25 less. I'm like, we already here. Let's just go ahead and get the car. I'll take the $5 hit. We going over there. Okay. Then we go over there. See, I told you, now we didn't got it for $1,200 less than what you were talking about. I'm like, you right. There you go. Save money. Financial literacy is very, very important for all of y'all out there in TV land and listening to this podcast. We on to something.
We're going to have that show.
Yeah, definitely. 4, relationship ready. It is so very important that your mate is relationship ready. The problem in a lot of relationships is that one party is not ready to settle down. Many women have confused sex for love and attempt to try to hook up.
To turn the hook up.
Turn the hook up into a husband. Right. Big mistake. Just because you are ready to take things to the next level doesn't mean that they are, which could result in all types of drama. Read jail time is what she said. I absolutely agree with that. I think that a lot of my husband and I were having this conversation on our way over here, and I said I think a lot of the times people mistake flirting for love. They mistake infatuation for love, and they find themselves falling into like that rabbit hole of, why don't you love me enough? Right. I thought that we were together. We slept together 6 times. That means we're a couple right now. You let me hear you talk to your mother on the phone. That means we're serious. But that's both ways. I think that we do take the idea of togetherness too far. We take friendship too far. We put way too much pressure on the friendship, and we don't read the signs. Because there are signs when somebody really wants to be with you, right? And when you are just something to do.
Yeah. I think it's funny when we're talking, humans, we were created, and in being created, I believe we're created to be in relationships. So I believe when we use the term and we speak relationship ready, I think humans look for a connection, and that connection is something that's in you. It's innately in who you are. And so I think the reason we misread signs is because we all have a desire to have that human connection. And I'm not just talking about the intimacy. Right. I'm just talking about or physical intimacy. I'm talking about the intimacy that comes with being able to be open, be honest, be bare with individuals who are around you, so that you can feel whole, not because you don't love yourself or just not things happening inside you, but so you can feel whole because you're a part of a community. I shared a couple of weeks ago, like I said, when God created Adam had the ultimate job, had the relationship, had perfect paradise, but when Adam went through all of the animals and each one had a mate and he didn't have a mate, God saw fit to give him a helper or help meet someone who could tend the land with him. And so he did that because there was a disconnect inside of it. It wasn't good for Adam to be alone, is what the scripture says. And so when you think about that, you understand that being in a relationship or desiring a relationship is not bad. Understanding that you're mentally and emotionally ready to enter into a relationship. And that's where I think people can fall into that trap of, confusing flirting and confusing so many other things for love. Because a lot of times we haven't taken the time to do the necessary inventory on ourselves, to read the right books, pray the right way, and then also be willing to say, you know what, this is what I'm looking for. This is a requirement. This is not. And be courageous enough to enter into that realm of looking for relationship, but not looking to go too far in because you've taken the time to do the right inventory on yourself emotionally, spiritually, and even physically.
Yeah, but what happens when, and this is all too familiar, what happens when your idea, this is about being raised, what happens when your idea of a relationship is what you've seen so far? You've seen your grandmother lay with people who weren't good to her. You've seen your mother lay with people who weren't good to her. You're repeating history, and then you get to a place in your life where, like you said before, you feel empty. And you're trying to figure out what does relationship ready look like to you, because you can read all the papers, you can pray all you want, but if you don't.
But you got to get to a place of stepping out there, though, because I think one of the reasons we're having this conversation today, right, and as we were talking, one of the reasons we're doing this is because I don't think there's a perfect pill to understand everything. I don't think there's a perfect way to kind of go into relationships. I could take you to, if Trish and I sat down, we could take you through the highs, the lows, the ins, the outs, the ups and downs of our years and what it doesn't look like. I'm sure each person in this room could take you through all of those things. And so, but the one thing I would not want a person to doing, I think when we say relationship ready is this, if you're not, and this is why I say do an inventory on yourself, and you're right, reading a paper is not going to do it. Listening to us, listening to Red Table Talk, all of the different things are not going to get you ready.
What did Tracy say? Tracy said write a list of the pros and cons of the whatever you're doing, whatever relationship, whatever job movement, these different things. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist.
She does relationship.
Yeah, but that was the relationship healing part. But her license, what she's scheduled to do. But she was just saying that if you do a pro and con on your relationships, if you move into a new place, a new job, and you write those things, what can you live with? What can you live without? And what is a hard break? Those things that if anything should happen, these are the things that I have to have, or these are the things that will cause me to walk away.
But she also said,
we call those something.
Say it again.
Triggers.
We call those triggers.
Yeah.
But one of the things she said was too. She said because when you're doing that, and the reason I say inventory is because I think there are a lot of individuals when you're looking for perfection in flawed human beings or imperfect people, you're going to wind up being unhappy and lonely for a long time. I think I shared it a few weeks ago on Instagram. It was just a post talking about we spend a lot of time looking for perfect. When we spend a lot of time looking for perfect, we find the imperfections in everything around us, from the job to your family to your significant other to you could be a sports team. But like if you're wiring yourself to think about and only look for the perfect, you'll never find it. I believe when it talks about being relationship ready, I think being relationship ready means, as Tracy talked to us about, do that inventory, make sure you put together that list. But I still think it takes courage for you to be honest with yourself and honest with the people you're entering into that friendship with before it develops into a relationship, so that you're having that good communication. I think it's a good thing, because that my same daughter that I had the conversation with on Friday. I told you this Thanksgiving, my oldest daughter, her husband's supposed to be coming home. Janae's Marine boyfriend will be back home, and so we're going to take some pictures. And so as my kids are kind of moving into these places, we don't rush them into relationships. These have been relationships that they've chosen. But in the process of doing so, you can see the serious nature of what those relationships are. So it's like, okay, we're going to take some pictures. I'm looking forward to having this time and being around them. So I asked my youngest, I said, well, you and your beau have been together for about a year. I said, we're going to take some pictures. She said, nah, that's too fast. And I'm actually glad she said that, but she wasn't saying it because they're not together. She understands that just because we're together now, that's not an indicator. She's 17, getting ready to turn 18, so why would she be thinking that way? Not future. Right. But what I wanted to at least ask her, because when she saw everyone else in there, I didn't want her to feel like he was excluded, because he's not. Because I consider I'm thankful and I like all of the people that my daughters are dating.
That's very rough with you, bro.
Well, one, I feel like the influence that I had to be in their lives was going to be more important. And I enjoy more of the conversations, because I knew I couldn't control and didn't want to control every aspect of it, because their mother and our relationship wasn't perfect. So why would I try to pick the perfect person or make the perfect environment for them? As long as these people are productive, doing something with their lives, adding value to their lives, and they're adding value to that other person's life, then I consider that a good thing. And when my youngest talks to me about what he plays football and some of the things that he says, and she tells me some of the things he says to inspire her when she's dancing, I'm like, all right, cool. She says it's the same way. She says it resembles what you and I are saying. And so I like to hear that. But I think relationship ready, I think relationship ready is you still have to have courage enough to not be saying, hey, we're in a relationship, but be clear in your communication about where you are and what you're talking about. Not to scare people off, but to invite them into your space because they're inviting you into their space, and you kind of come jointly. And this is not just for females. Fellas, you need to be honest with we need to be honest with ourselves about where we are relationally so that we can have those conversations. I think it would help women out a ton more, or a lot more, if men talked about where they were relationally, as opposed to just
We
the
don't.
hookup.
We don't usually have nobody to talk to, man. Being honest with you, we get in the huddle, play football, and beat each other up. That's kind of our therapy. And like my man T.O. said, you know what I'm saying, music.
Yeah.
If music is your best thing, that's how I do releasing. You know, I get mad, I'll go bang on the drums, or I'll make a beat. Now I DJ, so it's a whole lot of different things.
But I think we got to get to a healthy place for men, so that we're doing that.
Absolutely.
So that men, and it's not just for men who are like you and I in relationships, but people who are looking to get into relationships.
Yeah.
I think it's vital that men have these conversations, so that because the legacy, I believe black women and black and brown women have always built a strong family or familial legacy. One of the things that we have to do is own our part, because I don't want in this whole power movement for men to be left out of what we're at, the legacies that we should be adding. And I know there are good fathers who do a lot of good.
It's not personified.
Yeah, exactly. We're the ones who need to elevate that.
But I also think that we need to teach our children that the relationship that you have with your family, with yourself, with your siblings is so important. Because I know a lot of people reach outside to find relationships when they haven't really rebuilt or strengthened the relationships they have within their home.
Yeah.
So then the people on the outside who may be good or bad for them can teach them and pull them into different places that the family no longer can help anymore. See, my oldest daughter's 22. She's complete opposite. You can't even say that we're going on a date with her. You have to say that we're going to lunch or dinner or brunch. If you say date, she will counsel on you. And her thing, we kept asking, like, what's happening? And she said, I'm not ready to date. She said, until I feel like somebody can do for me what my father does for me, I'm not interested. She was like, I have a mom, I have a dad, I have friends. I feel full. I don't feel like I need to date. My son, he's the opposite. He wants relationship. He loves his girlfriend. He's like his dad. He pokes her all the time. She just stares at me like, help. I'm like, I can't. I'm in the same relationship. It's just different years. You know, and my youngest, she has the most unique relationship because she grew up wanting to be, she always used to say, so Mom, if I have a baby and I breastfeed, does that mean that my husband has to take care of me? And I used to be like, no, but he can help you out. And then as she's evolved into the person that she wants to be, she discovered that she wasn't going to marry a man at all, that she loves her girlfriend, and that those two together are going to just dominate the medical field. That's her thing, you know? So, but in trying to make sure that they both had this healthy life of learning how to be different, but they're not in this world, because whenever somebody says, oh, your child's gay, like, it's not a whisper. I mean, that's like when people say, are you black? I'm like, you can say it out loud. Like, it's okay. We're not going to fist fight you for that.
Right.
But watching the different kinds of love that's walking in and out of my house. And we even asked my youngest yesterday, we said, Madison, what do you think? What are what's the top 2 things your father and I have taught you moving forward? I think we get so scared to ask the kids those questions because they honest.
Yeah, you don't know what they're going to say.
AF. They'll say some stuff that'll tear your whole soul down.
Right.
And have you sitting on the floor, or you're mad.
That's daily.
Now you like, that's why you don't have edges. Like, now you saying stuff you're not supposed to say to your child. And hers was to stand up for herself and to have good communication. And I was like, okay, like, that wasn't too bad. Like, we're good with that.
Right.
But that financial side to my kids was none of them could have a credit card before they turned 20. None of them. Because I know that they went to college, and you know when you go to college, you get a bag of Fritos, you get a Visa, you get a Reese cup, you get a MasterCard, and then you buy a pair of shoes for $30, and then you're paying for $300 for the next 10 years, or you just don't pay it at all. You know, it's crazy. And the emotional stability side of things.
You gotta say you're transitioning.
I'm transitioning. Sorry.
Transitioning back to the list.
Number five. Emotional stability is very important in relationships.
From a family right into it, like,
yep.
Let me lose everyone real quick.
Skirt. They know what you tell me all the time.
Like,
Skirt.
Yeah, slow down.
Yeah, that's what he said. I know so many people, me being one, who found themselves coupled up with a good-looking fool. You know, the one that is too clingy or high-strung, the one who you are always fussing with about something, the one who cannot empathize with anyone or anything. You know, the Ike to your Tina.
So emotional stability, and once again, this is where communication comes in. And Super DJ, you said it. I'm just going to speak from a guy's perspective and about guys having this communication. I think it's important for guys to start finding that safe space to be vulnerable and communicating with each other about healthy relationship aspects so that they can have those good conversations with their women. Because I think emotional stability is not something you always do. I told you, providing, if you're a responsible man, providing is not complicated. You go to work, you pay bills, you do what you're supposed to do, and you keep it grinding, you keep it moving. Is that always the most healthiest thing for individuals? I like hearing old heads always talk like we didn't complain, we just did what we had to do.
Right.
But then when you look at some of this, the structure of their unit, they have shown their families how to provide, but there's still so many deficits that exist within the family. And while a man can't be everything, you definitely have to realize what you need to contribute. And so you need to know where what your strengths are to do so, but being able to be emotionally stable or emotional stability being a part of it, you don't want to be entering into a relationship with someone who has signs or showing signs that is like, you know what? They are going to either be like, that person who's going to be stalking you, that person who's going to be doing those different things online to expose you and, expose you emotionally, spiritually, or mentally and financially. You want to make sure that person that you're entering into that relationship with, you have good, honest discussions with him or her. And if you are in a relationship with someone who has not shown emotional stability and you guys are still committed, I would encourage you to find another couple or find some therapist that you can sit down and have, and don't be afraid to have conversations with. I know people who are looking to kind of stay together, but in the process of staying together, they don't know who they need to seek out or talk to.
Right.
And it may just start with, or trust. I was going to say, and that's why I say, because everyone might not have the finances to go to some therapist, but if you have a couple or friend or family member that you feel like you could talk to, find that person, and you don't drag your mate with you. You go. If you're the one who has concerns and issues, go so you can talk about where you are in the relationship and talk about yourself. Don't just go to talk about your mate.
Right.
Go talking about where you are and what you want. If you decide, this is what I want our relationship to continue to move forward. I would like to get us to a place where we're not fussing every night or every time we talk about finances or what we're doing. So you talk, and then if you're talking with someone, sometimes all it helps is once you get it out, you start thinking, and then you start like solving issues in your head on your own. That's a part of emotional stability, and those are simple things that you can do to just try to get yourself in that good place.
And it also frees up your space. I think a lot of people who are in destructive relationships or feel that they're in a place that is not worthy of their love, they bottle it all up inside. And that energy is detrimental to everything that is you, And I think that a lot of us have this loyalty bug that we need to let go of. You can, just because we have been together for 10 years doesn't mean that I've been healthy for you or you've been healthy for me. And sometimes, and a lot of the time, not sometimes, a lot of the times, real love looks like letting that person go so that they can be happy and you can be happy. Real love sometimes look like having that super honest conversation with that person about how you feel and letting them know that you love them enough to watch them walk away and be happy so that they can find something else. But so many people are afraid that if they let that love go, they're going to go somewhere and be super happy, and they're going to be the ones that's left holding on to the bag. And that's where that emotional stability walks in. When you can sit down and have a conversation about who you are. I had to have that conversation because I got so lost in being a mom and a wannabe wife. But I could be, like I say all the time, I was a bomb-ass single mother. I could work my ass off. I was a great employee. I was your best friend. Mm-hmm. If you called me and you needed me to help you set up a party, I could organize it. But when it came to having like that conversation with my husband where you could sit down and hear him talk and not take anything negative, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle him giving me criticism, even in love. I didn't have the ability, period.
Copy that. So we're going to let y'all answer this last one before we move into what I call the lightning round. So the last thing when you're looking for when you're going into a relationship is respect, respect, respect. It is everything and one of the most important ingredients when creating a good relationship. A person that doesn't respect you will lie, cheat, and destroy you. Not because they want to, but because they don't care enough to not to. A person that has no respect for you doesn't deserve the time of day in a clock shop. I like when she said that. So respect, and I mean, man, that's a strong one to close out on. So when it comes to respect in a relationship, Super DJ and K Latte, talk to the good people about the importance of respect, not only in your relationship, but just in general.
Respect is everything. All balled up in one, and can be very toxic, or it could be very invigorating. So
Big words.
Big words, police department. For me personally, how y'all doing out there? For me personally, that's what I grew up on. The principles from, even Light said this earlier on, like on other podcasts, that from uncles and father and grandfather, everybody had the respect value. Mm-hmm. So when they stand up in the house, things get shut down. When they turn the lights off, nobody turning the lights back on. Mm-hmm. When they spoke, everybody got quiet. That was the respect, like almost like military. But it wasn't forced on to be like the hand that whips everybody, but also given that, when they revered. That's right. That's the right people. Thing. Yeah. So when it came down to me, that's what I was looking for in my mate, was to be respected above love. Love, we can figure it out. We can figure out love. Lust, you can always figure that out too. But when it comes down to understanding that person, because we do definitely speak different languages at times, the respect value has to be there on both ends. So it breaks down to communication. And then I seen something on Facebook the other day. It said not only does it start at communication, but it also breaks down to comprehension. So I'm speaking. That's right. You hear me, but maybe you don't understand. And that's when you feel respected or you feel disrespected. Agreed, man. So I'm going to move on to Latte and see how she feels about the situation.
Y'all always cover everything.
She always
respect goes a long way. And although
we still want to hear K Latte's perspective.
Although it was at the bottom of the list, that's up there at the top with trust.
And these were just 6 things. This was not in no particular order, just 6 things.
I'm just laying my stuff out. Y'all speak so well.
Oh, wait, 1 minute.
Respect is probably another thing that has to kind of just come involuntarily, and it's not like really taught. You're taught, listen to the adults, your teacher. We automatically have respect for like our pastor, as you say, grandma, the matriarch of the family is like, you knew, don't say this, don't do that, and that was it. But applying it to a relationship, I think a lot of people have to learn that you're not always right, you're not gonna always agree. So it's just how you handle that. When we talk about relationship, we talk about I always say what you're willing to put up with. Everybody come with baggage, but are you willing to carry yours and his, and vice versa? Definitely. Like respect is like I always respect his opinion for the most part, but I have times that I think differently. Like when y'all had the little, that was funny. We were talking earlier. I just think it was a matter of, like she said, how our delivery, like you may not have got that it was all good. It actually wasn't any shade, but just the way that it came across, like, so it's girl power, and y'all don't believe that the man should get love for saying da. And it's like, I'm trying to tell you, Rebel will tell you, I'm all for. I love this conversation, and that you guys even talking about being vulnerable or feeling a certain way, because you don't get that. So you got to remember, now we done made up of years of not knowing, like, oh, you got feelings too, oh, you like that too, because we don't know. I ain't know too much about guys. Y'all had wrestling, man. We had the Green Army, man.
And that's it. Ken did whatever Barbie said.
So we didn't know. Barbie was alone. We had Ken was there. Like sometimes it was like, that's how I grew up. It was like, okay, I knew the difference, but I didn't know how to apply him to the life, because he wasn't really around.
And like we said before, what happens when you watch a woman or the matriarchs in your family always talk down about men, always talk low to men, always are the ones who make the final decision, or you hear a man say whatever your grandmother say, or if he, you know, when his light has been taken out because she has shot it down, or vice versa, when you watch your grandfather degrade your grandmother. You know, it's a communication issue a lot of the times when we're talking about respect, because if I try really, really hard. I don't always succeed, but right before I'm ready to say something that if I feel hot, I don't say it. Like if I feel like what's gonna come out of me isn't positive, and I don't mean positive like I love you so much, but if it's not gonna be something that's gonna teach us a lesson or give us some kind of a way to be able to fix it, I don't say it, because I spent years spitting words at him, and vice versa. And neither one of us respected each other. Like, we respected each other as parents, and we respected each other as, you know, providers in the house. But when we were talking to each other in a relationship, there was a lot of respect that we lost with each other, because I couldn't hear him talking and he couldn't hear me talking. Exactly. But the truth is that he was raised by a woman. I'm raised by a woman. There's no man in between that. Right. What do you really hear? Right. You know? And in my world, all I heard was when a man raised his voice, when it went up that extra octave or went down that extra octave, oh shit, it's about to go down.
So my defense is going to go up too, you know, depending on what your situation was. And I told him, I was like, if you walk up on me or you raise your voice, I'm reacting to that. So he'll be like, you know, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
I know, but then you have to walk yourself back down.
Yeah, so sometimes, like, you know what, I wish I had a recorder on sometime, because, like me, I know when I talk, I'm very passionate about, you know, particular things, and so it's the same thing for them. When he, like, I'm not, you know, talking louder, but I'm like, you was a little huffed up, you know.
And he'll be like, how we perceive it.
And Rebel said this, and you said two good things that I wanted, like, that were I consider salient points. Another.
I heard that, y'all. They got the vocabulary words.
But Rebel said this. Rebel said, you know, it's what you saw on Facebook. Can you repeat what you say you saw on Facebook? It's not just the communication, it's the what?
The comprehension.
Mm-hmm. So he said the comprehension, and you talked about, when you were talking about respect, you said, you know, we both come with baggage, but am I willing to carry his? And am I willing to carry hers? That boils down to a lot to communication, because what we tend to do is when we comprehend things, and I've learned this over and over and over again, we believe what we want to believe. And sometimes we believe what we believe because of our upbringing, because of the different experiences we have, but we believe what we want to believe. And even if someone is saying the absolute truth to us that will lift both of us up, we, depending on where we are emotionally, depending on where we are spiritually and physically, we don't acknowledge it because we don't want to be there. Right. When Lovely says she'll listen to something and her default is like, well, I don't want to just spit anything at him, so let me process so I can say something that's edifying, something that's lifting people up. Me, I'm like, nope, I'm going to say it anyway, because I always tell people, I like to fuss. And if I fuss and it gets us to a good place, I start that fussing, and then once we come around, and if at the end we're still sitting down and we're having conversations, because sometimes what we do is we will BS each other to death. And we will sit and know something is wrong and not talk and not say anything and all those other things. And I'm not speaking about your particular relationship. I'm just saying in general, people just kind of coast through life, because I've been a husband who has been a great father and has been a great provider. And Trisha's been the mother who's been a great mother and those things. And I would always say to her, but relationship-wise, we've entered a desert. And once we enter that desert, the only time we would, you know, to get out that desert wasn't to kind of like take some water and just like pour it in there, because when you would try to bring the water, she wasn't trying to get she didn't want the water from you. She didn't want to drink the water from you. So it's like, all right, you ain't gonna do that, so let me make it hotter then. I'm gonna bring some wood. I'm gonna bring it's hot as a mud. I'm gonna bring some wood. I'm gonna bring some fire. I'm gonna spark it up, and then you're like, why the hell you got it so hot in here? Like, all right, so now we talking? All right, so good. Then we gonna beef, and then we gonna talk about what the real. But that's been, and I ain't saying that's functional.
That's everybody. Just make sure you know what your spouses can handle and can't handle.
But I'm not. I'm not saying that for everybody. I'm not telling this for people to do. But when we talk about this, it's because once again, keep it in context. It's not just communication. It's comprehension. It's not just from a respect status, am I willing to carry my own baggage, but the baggage of that individual I'm in a relationship with. When I say what I'm saying is I understand, and I understood that I was always willing to carry the baggage, but we had to have the conversations about the baggage. And then once we had the conversation, I didn't want you to be just looking at it from the baggage that you brought. You got to understand mine as well.
Right.
And see, when we have those quotes, and that's like I say, to me, that's a profound truth when you said what you just said, and when you saw what you saw, because all too often what we do is we don't recognize someone else's baggage is valid, and they're allowed to have, it's valid for them to have it. And it's my responsibility being in this relationship, regardless of if I'm starting now or if I started 10 years ago, for me to not only acknowledge it, but to work with them on it because I value that person. And then we can kind of lift it up. But if you don't value the person and you discount, I'm telling you, there's so many times when the man feels like and we call it baggage, but the emotions and everything else that he brings into a relationship is discounted. And when you feel like it's discounted, for me, that kind of puts a further divide, and depending on who that man's personality is, mine was one where we're going to talk. So that's why I would spark the fire to make sure we still had the conversation. Some other dudes may just check out totally and be like, I'm just disconnected. I'm going to still provide for you, but I ain't around. I'm not going to kick it with you. And we'll be doing this stuff until we decide we're not doing it.
Right.
So.
Or conversation.
So the one word that we're not using that gets us together in the first place, and that respect, when we start being in love, as we say, we forget to be friends still. I think because of certain things you're not going to do and say to your friend, right? When you're in a relationship, you're in love, you just like, well, like you should already know. And sometimes I tell Rebel that, and I'll be like, I think maybe, as we say, we give you too much credit. It's like, and he like, I really didn't know that
I can't read your
I put my shit, I'll be like, you like this? And he'd be like, nah. And I'm like, damn. Like, I had this purple lipstick on the other way here, right? And now that I know him, I don't take it personal. But the latte that I know, I'm in the corner like, he had to say it like that,
But I think
he just
right.
said no.
That's me.
I'm saying it's like we saying we want that, but then just the girl in me was like, you could have said, baby, you can wear anything. And he just said no, and I was just like, okay, and I just wiped it off. So I'm in here plain lip today, like, I feel.
But it also comes down to, we had this conversation a while ago. It comes down to communication and your delivery.
Right.
Everybody has a different way that they can accept
things.
And
he's very blunt, as we used to say.
And
so
I say all the time, I don't care what you say to me. It can be blunt or whatever, but there's a certain way you need to talk to me and the way I need to talk to you. It just
I know that you're not trying to say maliciously.
Because there are things there are things in the tone of a person's voice that will cause me to cut you off. That's my baggage, and I know that. So I won't be able to hear you give me the advice that I need when you're coming at me. Because back in my childhood, when people were loud, we were fighting.
Yes.
We were trying to get away. We weren't listening. We were fight or flight, and we were flying about that bitch. So when people start going at you, I think people need to really just read on this. The traumas that happen in your life,
they're not going to understand
the traumas that you have in your life, wherever age you were at that time, really dictates how you handle those things. So, if you lost the person, your mom or your dad at a certain time, if you had your heart broken at a certain time, if you lost trust at a certain time, until you repair those things within you, you are stuck at that age. And until you talk about those things to build yourself back up and learn to trust yourself. Because I will tell you that when my husband and I went through our time together, when things were really bad, I didn't trust me. It was like, no, but you shouldn't trust him. No, fuck him. Me. I'm important to me. I can't make decisions about getting dressed. I can't make decisions about going left or right. I can't make decisions about spending my money because I lost trust in myself. So when you are having these conversations about respect and emotional stability and things like that, you have to rectify those things within yourself, because no matter how great your spouse is, if you haven't fixed you, you won't hear shit they're saying. It won't go through. It doesn't matter how hot they are with you. It doesn't matter how much they scream. You're going to hear the voice in your head telling you, no, we don't do that. And the world's falling apart and you're just sitting at the table blinking,
I'll ask again, because we've said that in times past. When you say you didn't trust yourself, I think that needs further explanation on what didn't you trust?
I didn't trust my ability to make a decision because
a decision about what?
Period. I didn't trust myself to make a decision. Now, listen, I did not trust myself to make a decision. Period. I lost all respect for myself.
Based
on the actions of another person. But I had to reevaluate myself. That's when you sit down and you check yourself and realize that a person's actions does not reflect on you. But sometimes the blunt sometimes is so hard. That hit is so hard. It causes all your foundation to fall apart, and you have to rebuild that. And I will say that, honestly, I needed to rebuild my foundation because my foundation was broken. Because like I said, I had an issue with men. I didn't trust anything that anybody said that didn't come from an alpha female point of view, because that's what my childhood was about. My mother was the high, and anything that wasn't something that she would do, I couldn't understand that. So when you have your foundation knocked from under you, heartbreak or trust, respect, those type of things really cause you to have to question yourself. Like we said on the podcast the other day, where you're like, I'm just going to kill myself because fuck it, and then you're like, no, I'm not. Okay, I just need to reevaluate. I need to learn new languages to talk to myself. Because I think so many times as people, we pretend like men don't feel this way. There's a reason why men commit suicide too when they lose somebody they love, or when women kill men or men kill women, or whatever that situation.
We hold all our feelings.
So and my thing is that women, even though we're told we can express ourselves, but the minute we express ourselves, we're considered weak and whiny, and we talk too much and we cry too much. We're overly emotional. But even though it's accepted in the world, it's not accepted from black women in the world. Right. Because if we raise our voice a little bit because we don't like something, we're aggressive. If we say it's because of the way we speak, it's the way our body language is. I'm not saying,
The same thing you saying you like about her, she's spicy. She is the same thing.
But then the minute she do it, you like she too much.
Do it to us.
Say it again.
Do it to us. When you're spicy and somebody got on your nerves and you wild in their life, we love you. You understand me? Yeah. But when you're wild in our life,
and I said before, level. I used to say all the time, my husband used to be just this arrogant guy. Like when he would walk in the room, his nose was up and he would just look down at people. And I used to be like, oh my God, look at him. And when that shit got turned on me, I was like, you can't talk to me like that because I'm your girlfriend. You should love me. And I was like, shit, wait a minute. That's a knife I don't want to deal with. You turn that sword the other way, please.
Right. She told me the same thing. She said, cast a mirror on yourself and look at how you were talking to me at that particular time. And then I stopped. I really value our relationship as far as our comprehension because we started off with talking. That's where it all led from. It started conversations on the phone, long conversations like, you cool? Yeah, I'm cool. You cool? I knew you since high school, but things are different. Yeah.
So we want to roll over because we are running out of time.
Because what I was going to say, because you had a couple of points before you go there, because we may not. Yeah, obviously we're right up against the clock. But because
I'm gonna jump back on the turntables.
Okay. But Super DJ, we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I wish I had like a clap thing.
He has a clap on there somewhere. But no, one of the things, because we're right up against the clock and we're right at our time, there's so many different things that's talked about, and there's so much to this whole journey that we did want to share, and we may come back to some 10 tips for men, on how to date a strong black woman, and then there was another topic that we'll be talking about.
10 things you can say to make your man feel good about being your man.
And we'll be talking about those things on our podcast. So I'll just kind of like say that if you want to kind of check in with us there. But I'm going to just transition into what I call the light side.
And then I'll finish up with.
As we were sitting here talking, there's a lot of things that we discussed today. And what I've learned in doing all of this research and being in relationship and being in relationships and desiring relationships as a man. Lovely, you just made a comment about men and the suicide rate about men. I would say that, a lot of men, when you study that perspective on why men commit that suicide, a lot of it, all too often, I told you, is when a man feels like he can't provide, is when they start considering that stuff. When they're in dire financial straits and they feel like they're not doing a certain thing, you find men making these drastic decisions to harm themselves. And that's because they've lost the ability to do what they believe they should be doing. When we talk about a man in a relationship, I want to encourage my brothers, it's real simple. Bruh, like, who we are is more than just the finances that we provide, more than the seeds that we plant, more than the ego that I don't feel is a bad thing. And I think that, and I enjoy and I love being the man that I am. I love learning more and more and more about myself. And I want to encourage my brothers to take time to do self-introspection. I want to encourage brothers to take time, even if you're not a reader, listen to things. And I'm not talking about listening to things that just make you feel comfortable. Listen to things and view things that cause you to deeply reflect on who you are as a person. And one of the things I encouraged one of my buddies to do, I said, you might not be a writer. I said, but all you got to do is hit the microphone thing on your notes section, speak your emotions into your phone, speak and just look back and reflect on what it is that you're experiencing in certain moments so that you understand you. While you may not keep a diary, it's important for you to understand what it is you're going through. And then when you feel comfortable enough, reach out to a brother, connect with someone, share those thoughts, and connect with someone who will help you grow. Don't connect with someone who will just enable you or just co-sign on the bad place that you're in. But connect with someone who's trying to encourage you to build strong relationships in your life. And as my sister said, brothers, it starts with you. It's going to. She was talking about a woman's perspective and trusting themselves. I'll tell you, as a man, you need to understand who you are, because the sooner you understand who you are, you'll start to understand some of the decisions you make and the decisions that you have made in the past and the decisions you want to make in the future. So take some time, read, reflect, communicate, not talk to yourself, but talk, keep notes, keep diary about what's going on and what's happening inside of you so that the relationships that you're in can benefit from the full person that you are or are becoming. That's the light side.
Nice. And the lovely moments, I just want to reiterate the questions so that we can keep a journal. Just start asking yourself very simple questions, but you'll realize that they're a little bit harder than you thought they were. Who taught you how to love? And does that love still reflect the same way now? Because I know that there are a lot of the times where what we know is right and what we do don't connect. So ask yourself that question. What are your requirements for love? Are you in relationships that nurture you or deplete you? Or for yourself, do you love yourself enough? And I'm not talking about any kind of pampering yourself mentally. Are you kind to who you are as a person? Do you compliment yourself? Have you told yourself that you love yourself lately? Can you write down 5 good things about who you are and what you love about yourself? If you can't do that, that's a time for you to really work on loving yourself, figuring out what your requirements are, the pros and cons of the relationships that you're in, and who do you feel most vulnerable around, or what situation makes you feel most vulnerable. That transparency, that openness that you have to have in order to have vulnerability is a freeing space. It allows you to tell the truth to yourself and to the people around you. So we appreciate you guys for joining all of us here at Mix Station. We thank you so much from All Up in Your Business. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
All Up in Your Business podcast, y'all. We're going to end the show like this. Ashley Sierra, and the song is called Too Much Sauce.
Jay's Productions.
But it's never too much, never too much. I said it's never too much, never too much. Put out the fire and haze, smooth the ride the Mercedes. I got the juice, nigga. I ain't playing, I ain't playing, I ain't playing, I ain't playing. Bitch, I'm sicker than a fetus with Zika. I got that magic and freak, I do work. What you saying, what you saying, what you saying, what you saying? These rappers wanna be great. I guess these rappers wanna be me. But I ain't see you at the meeting, I don't recognize your mug, nigga. I'ma need to see some ID, gon' pull it out. You sketchy. You tryna be a dream girl, Miss Effie. Now one step to the left, one step to the right. I ain't feeling it. Next, please. I think you should take a nap, cause you tired as fuck. You bitches a little dry, had to sauce you up. I said I'm killing everybody, gon' line them up. I might pour a fifth of goose on this block of ducks. I might rob a politician, hit the block and stuff. Cause y'all niggas do what you got it and they do what they want. This rap shit is a snack and you look like lunch. I'm playing like I'm 23 and it's time to clutch and you hate it. They say that's too much sauce. Too much sauce. You can't wipe me down, I'm just dripping love. You can't wrench it off. I got too much sauce. Said that's too much sauce. You can't wipe me down, I'm just dripping love. You can't wrench it off and I'm dripping. walk behind me, they slipping, 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 slipping. I told you I'm dripping. Boy, dripping, 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 dripping. And these hating hoes, they all walk behind me, they slipping, 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 slipping. I told you I'm, bitch, I'm ready to coach. Don't need no icebreaker, no this fucking introductions. Y'all know what y'all know, what y'all know, what y'all know. Stick with the metaphor, similes, you a copy like Giftley's, I'm a poet. And that's why all these chicks wanna be great. I know for sure they wanna be me, but you don't understand the mission. Looking for a tunnel vision. These little hoes need to take a seat, a whole stadium. While niggas check my endeavors, I was the underdog, humble, but then your favorite could never sit with the mean girl. You plastic on my Corinthian leather, been dropping juice for a minute, and you still looking for treasure. Damn, but I told you coattailing ain't gon' get you far. Now you eating up your pants, but you maxing shaw. Astronaut with my aim, but I shoot for stars. Woo! Now I'm chasing for this life, it's a hell of a thrill. I'm getting all you bitches spots like Corella DeVille, but it's a jungle out here, so it's kill or be killed, and you know it. They say it's too much sauce, too much sauce. You can't wipe me down, I'm just dripping love. You can't wrench it off. I got too much sauce, said that's too much sauce. You can't wipe me down, I'm just dripping love. You can't wrench it off, and I'm dripping. Drippin', 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 drippin'. And these hating hoes, they all walk behind me. They slippin', 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 slippin'. I told you I'm drippin'. Boy, drippin', 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 drippin'. And these hating hoes, they all walk behind me. They slippin', 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 slippin'. I told you I'm